Hey guys, hope you're liking my upload schedule. Got that old Technoblade consistency over here, Jesus. But I have a lot to say about this new movie. As some of you know, I'm a huge film buff, but I'm also a huge nerd. I love Harry Potter, Marvel, Star Wars, Disney, DC, Lord of the Rings, you name it, I like it. But I have a lot to say about this new Marvel movie, Thunderbolts. We're going to start with non spoilers, and then I'll give a spoiler warning before we get into the nitty gritty of things. Also, as some of you know now, I've been working on another Outlawed video for a little while, but a lot of the footage I need is no longer obtainable, just for server logistics and such. I'm also just burnt out as all hell from that vid, so I'm taking a long break from it, but I wanted to make something, so here it is. My nerd vids don't do super well, but I don't really care because I like them. So, unlike future reviews that I may do on this channel, I'm actually going to start with the score that I gave, which is an 8 out of 10. I thoroughly enjoyed Thunderbolts, and I think it's one of the best Marvel movies since Endgame. But I have some issues. All right, now I'm a little nicer to Marvel, so we're going to start with the positives. First, the performances are all great. Florence Pugh does wonders for this movie's emotion, and David Harbour is, not surprisingly, hysterical. Yelena is absolutely the main character, but a lot of the Thunderbolts do get time to shine. Sebastian Stan has some particularly good delivery and lines. A lot of the other Thunderbolts, unfortunately, have a much smaller impact on the story, but at the end of the day, a lot of these characters are already really interesting from their respective projects, and it isn't that much of a negative. Next, the cinematography is good. Nothing spectacular, but certainly a cut above recent Marvel. Thunderbolts is also the first Marvel movie in a while to feel like it's actually about something. This one has a clear purpose and direction, and it certainly accomplishes the goal it's seemingly set off to accomplish. The action is good, but nothing spectacular. Don't go into this fight expecting any Kingsman one shots or Daredevil hallway fights. It's certainly entertaining, and easily my favorite is towards the start of the movie. If you've seen it, you know it. It's brief, but a character enters a hallway, and the entire fight is filmed from the top down. It's pretty freaking cool to watch. The new addition to the MCU, Bob, is great. I'm not saying anything else until we get to spoilers, though. There's plenty more positives, but the last one I want to bring up is the score. I'm a movie theater employee, and easily my favorite theaters to clean currently are the Thunderbolt screenings just because of the music. Somebody let Sunlux cook a little too hard. All right, like I said, there are more positives to discuss, but I think it's time to get into spoilers because basically all of my negatives are there. So, this is your official spoiler warning for Thunderbolts. All right, so this is very clearly a movie about mental health and the impact of people. The human connection, I think, is a large factor in Thunderbolts and the connection between just people. It isn't really trying to hide it either. So, when Taskmaster died after only one line and is only brought up a few times throughout the rest of the movie, I was a bit annoyed. Not because I thought Taskmaster was going to live, the marketing gave that away big time, but because I was hoping for her death to be a catalyst and propel the story forward rather than just being a thing that happens. Loki dying at the beginning of Infinity War sets Thor's Stormbreaker arc in motion and leads to saving everyone at the Battle of Wakanda and almost leads to defeating Thanos. Yinsen dies, so Tony Stark can't rely on anyone to save him, and it sets even more of his arc in motion in the original Iron Man. Hawkeye's family getting dusted in Endgame propels him into being Ronin, but Taskmaster just kind of dies. It was obvious that she was a goner, especially with the chairs announcement, having every Thunderbolts get confirmation that they'd appear in Avengers Doomsday except for Olga. Kind of not a great indicator on who's going to survive Thunderbolts. Next, I do have some issues with the finale. I love the idea of the third act, but why do we only see a few characters in the rooms? We could have had some actual character for Ghost. Hell, we could have wrapped up Walker's story. He was debating killing himself, and that thread isn't brought up again. I thought Bucky's joke about it was actually one of the funniest jokes in the movie, where he goes like, "Fuck, what does he say?" He says like, "Shit." Oh shit. He goes like, "There's no skeletons in my closet," or like, "No dark deeds in my past," or something like that. I don't know. I don't remember the exact line, but it's funny. I would still rather have a good scene with Bucky. I'm sure there's a little teetering in the writers' room about that because At some point, you have to stop looking back with the character of Bucky. You can't just keep reminding the audience of his sins and creating new awful things he did as the Winter Soldier, because then Bucky's a character that will either be stuck and won't be able to progress or just regress. However, the void is supposed to bring out the deepest of somebody's regrets, right? Why not have Bucky just be somber and remorseful, but not overplay it? I feel with the right direction in that scene, that could have been one of the best moments in the entire movie. So, here's my pitch. We see a scene of the Winter Soldier beating a young man with his metal arm, blood dripping from his mouth, blood dripping from the metal arm. And the man tries to connect with Bucky, telling him that he has a wife and he has a kid on the way, and all he wants to do in his life is look upon his child. And the Winter Soldier retorts with something cold and sinister, something vile and evil. And as this is happening in the background, we see present day Bucky in the foreground, mouthing along with what he said all that time ago. His face is somber but stoic. He's come to terms with his past, but he's relived these moments 1,000 times over. He may have moved on, but it is the biggest regret of his life. But I'm not a writer. I just thought we'd have a fun little sidebar. I don't want to insinuate that I can write these films better. Obviously, I can't, but I am studying writing, so I thought I'd just throw something in there for fun. Also, the asterisk thing was really fun. My theory headed into the film was that it was a Dark Avengers title reveal and they just weren't going to include Norman Osborn, but I'm totally fine with this. A lot of people are taking issue with the fact that these are the new Avengers and they aren't as good as the originals, but that's kind of the point. The ending shows Valentina springing that name on the Thunderbolts. It's not like they chose it. And all the credits before the first post-credit scene focus on the negative public thoughts on this new development. Hell, even the second post-credit scene mentions it. The last thing I want to talk about is the post-credit scene, the second one to be specific. So we see a 14-month time jump where the new Avenger... No, fuck off. I'm not doing a recap. I'm sure you remember it if you saw the movie. But here's the thing. If you had asked any of my real life friends, they would have told you that I clocked that the Fantastic Four would lose and their world would be destroyed after the first friggin' trailer. I'm not big on the fact that the post credit scene kind of confirms that notion. Like, if you haven't figured out that whole plot thread yet about how the Fantastic Four are going to lose and they're going to have to come to this world, that's a little whack. I think the Sam Wilson stuff is really interesting, but it's giving me a bad feeling about Avengers Doomsday. Look, I'm super excited for it, but here's my take. There have been a lot of projects post MCU that have left characters in what I refer to as the plug and play state. A lot of these characters are at places where if you grab them and throw them in an Avengers movie and give them like one good line or scene, it'll be fine. Ant-Man, Hawkeye, Kate Bishop, Miss Marvel, Captain Marvel, the Guardians of the Galaxy, if they appear, Star-Lord, Moon Knight, Nick Fury, Loki, Hulk, etc. All of those characters have had at least somewhat satisfying character arcs, if not entirely satisfying, and none of those characters are necessarily in need for big sweeping character arcs. However, as of recently, there have been more and more open threads that seemingly have to be wrapped up in one of these Avengers films. If Daredevil appears, which I don't think he will, there's one. Doctor Strange will probably only appear in Secret Wars, but still, there's two. Bob is incapable of using his powers, and you know damn well that the MCU isn't going to keep him like that, so there's three. Elizabeth Olsen is heavily rumored to appear. There's four. Shang-Chi's fate was left up in the air in the post-credit scene of his movie. Monica Rambeau is stranded in another dimension. Every single Eternal is in a state of fucking crisis right now. Namor doing some evil shit in the background, not to mention the fact that we're 2 movies away from another 2-movie Avengers release, and we still haven't even heard about the villain, let alone seen him. Knowing Robert Downey Jr. is playing Doctor Doom raises a bunch of questions too, because he played fucking Iron Man. And also, what about all of the X-Men? Most of the original cast was officially announced to be reprising their roles. We're mostly just missing Famke Janssen, Halle Berry, Hugh Jackman, and Anna Paquin. And I don't even think Rowe will be in it because most people didn't like her in the originals anyway, so we can count her out too. All right, look, after seeing Thunderbolts open multiple more threads, I'm just nervous as all hell for Doomsday. I don't expect all these threads to be resolved, but the more that are left unresolved after these 2 movies, the more I'm going to feel that phases 4 and 5 were incredibly disjointed. So at the end of the day, Thunderbolts does have some issues, but it's definitely on the good side of Marvel. Fun, action, great emotion, and some fun, but albeit concerning cliffhangers. It's a solid 8 out of 10 from me. But I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you seen it? If so, what did you think about it? So let me know, and I'll hopefully see you soon. Cheers.